what can you tell us about your experiences working for Jeff Jarrett in TNA?
A lot of those ups and downs, like we were talking about earlier with the persevering through stuff. TNA was when I first started was great, and it kind of came again out of nowhere. I'd been trying to get into the company in late 2003, and I'd done a few of their explosion matches, which at the time were where they would bring in guys and girls and they would work with signed contracted talent and they would kind of take a look at them. But for the most part, we were just there to shine up their guys and girls. And I'd worked a few of those. Ron Harris, I think it was Ron Harris or Don Harris, one of the Harris brothers that used to run the backstage area, and we got put in a match. And I remember he had so many other things going on because he was the guy that made sure the asylum there in Nashville was set up and all the tickets were ready to go and the concessions were ready to go. So like he had 100 jobs, and then his last job was having a 3-minute squash match with me. And so I remember, we got together probably about 5 minutes before doors open, and he was like, "All right, I want to do this, this, and this, and I've got this manager, and I want you to do this with him at this moment, and this and this, this. You good?" And I went, "Yeah, cool, man." And we went and did it, and it went great. So that was like my first one, and then I did a couple more, and then I was driving to Nashville because we used to drive from Dallas to Nashville, which is like 9.5 hour drive. And this was early 2004, so we had cell phones, but we didn't have like constant access to your emails and everything like you do now. That's how old I am, brother. And I remember getting to the asylum in Nashville, expecting to be working another like explosion match, dark match, and where the explosion board was, my name wasn't on there. So at first I was kind of disappointed. I was like, "Oh, I came all this way and I'm not getting anything." Because the guy that I'd come with, who I'd been told that I was going to be working with, because they really wanted to take a look at him and he was on the board, but was with somebody else. And I was like, "Oh, Eddie's working with somebody else." I was like, maybe I guess they're not with me. And then as I'm looking down the rest of the board, which I'm just looking to look because not thinking I'm going to be on it, and it had Kid Cash, and my name at the time was Shadow. They ended up not using Shadow because of I don't know why. And I ultimately Dallas was born. And I was actually I don't even know if I had a name the first night that I worked with Kid Cash. I was just like Kid Cash's relative. Like there wasn't even a definition. Like I wasn't his brother. I wasn't like a cousin. I wasn't a brother-in-law. I wasn't anything. It was like just this. Look at this big guy. It's Kid Cash's his relative. Of all the things they could say, like they couldn't come up with anything. I don't even think I had the name Dallas the first night. I might have. I don't know. But then it was like that night we had the match. It was like Simon Diamond and Sonny Siaki, I believe that was who we had the match against. And we were part of like a tag team tournament at the time because they were crowning new tag champs through a tournament. And I remember going out doing the match. It all went really well and came back. And like Jarrett, who was still with the company at the time, like stood up and shook my hand and said some really positive things. And then Bob Ryder, who was, highly influential within the company at the time, he was like, "So you want to work with us?" I was like, "Yeah." "What does that mean?" He goes, "Oh, well, let's work up a contract." And so we like went upstairs at the asylum, and on his laptop and a printer right there, he wrote up something like they had like a general contract, and we agreed to some terms which were very small. And he printed it up, and I think I called my mom or somebody and talked to her about it briefly, but then signed it and handed it back to him, and that started my TNA career. And I remember I was like, "Should I come back next week?" And they were like, Dutch Mantel was like, he's like, "You come back every week until we tell you not to come back." And I was like, "Okay." Guess that's how this worked to me. Well, when they put the tag titles on Kid Dash, and that was like a taped show because they did Wednesday lives, but for some reason we were taping a couple episodes, and like I remember winning the title, and they were like, I was like, "All right, who do I give this to?" And they were like, "You hold on to it." And I was like, "I hold on to it?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they were like, I was like, "Okay." And I took it home and like started when we started flying. I remember the basically like we had to fly from Dallas to Nashville to Orlando, and then we'd fly home. And Cash and I were still the tag champs at the time. And I remember like I flew with it and I checked it and everything. And someone's like, "You checked the belt?" And I was like, "Yeah. What else am I supposed to do with that heavy ass thing? I'm not carrying it on the plane with me. Like, what happens if they lost it?" And my mind just went, oh my God, I have no idea. What if they lost it? Like, yeah, you never check the belt, kid. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll never check the belt again. So from then on, if and when I was a champion anywhere, I never checked belts. So now I understand why guys, when they lose titles, they're like, oh, I'm not happy I'm losing a title, but I'm happy I don't have to carry this big ass thing around anymore.
That is what everybody says. Like, oh man, it's just another heavy thing I got to put in my bag.
They're so heavy. They're so heavy. And if you're somebody who has like a lot of gear or big boots or a bigger jacket or anything like that, well, you have to start like taking that stuff out so that you can carry this belt. And I've seen a couple guys like still like just carrying the belt because they didn't have any room in their carry on. So it's like all right, do what you do, show it off, floss it, man.
But man, walking through an airport carrying a belt, oh boy,
Yeah,
that's
talk about looking like a mark.
you know. What about Jeff Jarrett personally though? Like, he's a wrestler, so he's one of the boys, but he's also
Right.
kind of walking a weird line where he's the owner. So it's
Yeah.
what was it like being around him?
I mean, he was always cool to me. I didn't have any like real matches or interactions with him. Must when the height of the Hoytomania stuff when we were in Orlando, we did have a few moments where we'd have like mixed tag matches and stuff, and like he would team with Monty Brown and I would team with like Jeff Jarrett or Jeff Hardy or something like that. So we had moments like that where we worked together. But again, because he was kind of running the company, he had so many things going on. Always cool to me, always very personable. I never personally had any issue with him whatsoever. I mean, I know everybody has issue with somebody in this business, and he was always cool to me. We had a very small conversation, like when I very first started. It was just, I think, him kind of trying to get to know who I was, and it was a cool little moment. And like I said, because he had so much going on as far as being an owner at one point, and being the booker at another point, and also being one of the talents on the show, he had so many hats on, trying to make sure that TNA was something special, which it was, especially. So we didn't have a whole lot of times, but we'd see each other because everybody would usually hang out at the Orlando Ale House and eat, and then we'd go back to the DoubleTree and hang out. And it was kind of a cool vibe that way. And once you were kind of there, it was more relaxed, less business oriented, and more just friendly and stuff like that. And I would see him and we'd say hey and we'd shake hands and we'd whatever hug and everything was cool. So never had a lot of interaction with him outside of the ring, or excuse me, the office at the Universal Studios. But everything that we did have interactions live was always cool.
Yeah, Jeff's a good guy, and
Yeah,
it's cool to see him there working in TN or in AEW now as well, and still working at a high level. He's still good.
looks amazing too,
Yeah, whatever he's doing, keep doing it, Jeff.
right?